Kelly Bennett. I'm the Marketing and Events Manager for the Birmingham Bloomfield Chamber, and I will be moderating today's event, so welcome, and thank you all for joining us. The Chamber is proud to do its part in improving the quality of life in the communities we live and work, and our public schools play a critical role in this. We look forward to hearing from our school leaders as they prepare for the upcoming school year. Following their presentations, we will open the program up for questions from the audience. However, we do ask that you have these written down on the blue note cards that were at registration. We will have our staff and ambassadors collecting these throughout the event. Okay. At this time, I would like to thank our sponsors for this morning, Michigan United Credit Union and Oakland Community College. We could not host programs like these without the support of our members. Okay, and now I'd like to introduce Linda Hatfield, Vice President of Business Development at Michigan United Credit Union, who will introduce our first presenter.
Good morning, and thank you for coming to this wonderful event that we are proud to sponsor every year. At this time, I'd like to introduce Dr. Ambika Robertson. Birmingham Public Schools welcomed Dr. Ambika Robertson to her role as superintendent on June 8th of 2021. Robertson has been with Birmingham Public Schools since 2008, having served as Harlan Elementary principal from 2008 to 2017, and Groves High School principal from 2017 to 2020. Prior to her position as superintendent, Dr. Robertson served as the Birmingham Public Schools Assistant Superintendent for Student Learning and Inclusion. She has experience as the elementary, middle, and high school levels and holds a Doctor of Education degree at Education Leadership and Policy Studies from Wayne State University. I can't imagine anybody better for this position than Dr. Ambika Robertson.
Thank you. And I want to thank the Birmingham Bloomfield Chamber for hosting this event today and having us here. I also want to thank our Vice President, Jen Rast, from our Board of Education that's here, as well as Trustee Whitman for being here and supporting Birmingham and their students and our students. Now I want to start with a video that highlights what we're here for, which is students. I wanted to highlight that video because what we're here for is our students. And it's just a good reminder about why we do what we do every day here in our public school district. Now, as you can see, many of those pictures were taken when we had more COVID protocols. However, last year, I'm really proud to say that we were able to keep all of our students in school and in session, and we were able to relax COVID protocols as things changed within our region and have more of our activities that felt a bit more normal. Now, before I go any further, I have to address the elephant in the room because nobody's really going to be listening to things that I say without in the back of their mind saying, I wonder if she's going to address the financial issues that Birmingham has been in the news for. So let me just address it right now. One, I would just like to say our district with our Board of Education have been very supportive to do some very challenging work over the past year. We did find ourselves in a shortfall that was driven primarily by a decline in enrollment. And just to give you an idea of what that means is that while we have lost 1,000 students over the last 10 years with declining enrollment, which is also declining enrollment in the state of Michigan, in the last 2 years, we lost over 600 students. And 600 students for us in revenue is about $7.5 million. So that in itself was a driving factor. But what we did as last year, and I have to say, my first year definitely was baptism by fire. What we did over the last year is, one, we communicated transparently and consistently with our community. We held town hall meetings. We had board presentations. We had listening circles to find out ideas from our staff and our community about how to address our budget deficit, both with cost-saving issues and as well as what are some revenue-generating opportunities that we can embark on. And what we did was we had a short-term solution to address our situation, and our short-term solution was to use one-time grant funds to fill in the gaps between our revenues and expenditures. But then as well, for long-term, we really looked at how do we adjust our spending to our current reality. And that meant, unfortunately, looking at staff reductions because the bulk of a school district's expenditures is in salaries. And when we lost 600 students over the last 2 years, our staffing really had not changed in the last 10. And so that was something that we really needed to work on. And we did the hard work and are able now to move forward. Our budget ended at the end of last year with a projected $2.8 million going into our fund equity. And by the end of this school year, this 22-23 school year, we project that we will still have a almost $15 million fund balance, which will put us at about 12%, which is right in between our board policy, which says that our fund balance needs to be between 10 and 15%. So while we've had some challenging times, we are weathering the storm, and we're now ready to move to a new chapter. But I wanted to address that because I feel like you're not going to listen to anything else that I say unless I address the elephant that's in the room. So one of the things that I am proud of, there's a lot of things that I'm proud of over the last year. So in addition to actually addressing our financial shortfall, we also embarked on a math curriculum review and started that process where we brought in community members and also students. We also conducted a safety audit with a third party just because we, as school officials, safety is not our forte generally, and so we wanted to make sure that we had someone from the outside who looked at our processes from a safety standpoint and gave us some pointers. And we also completed a strategic plan. So I'm really proud that in this 1 year, we were able to do all of these things. And I want to show the strategic plan, which we're going to ask the board to adopt and vote on August 16th. So our strategic plan, just so we had involvement, we had initial survey data from our equity audit in 2021. We had over 4,000 respondents, as well as an additional community-wide survey that happened in December of 2021. And then we had a number of focus groups. And those focus groups were with staff, with community members. At each of the high schools, we held focus groups, as well as with our middle school students. So we got a lot of input in terms of what is the vision that our community and our stakeholders would like to see for the next 5 years. Some of the core values that we see here that came out of the survey and focus group information is student success, inclusion, community, equity, perseverance, and integrity. So our 4 priorities is 1, student success or student achievement. And one of the things, what we heard from our communities, they want us to strengthen our core instruction. They want us to increase proficiency, and not only proficiency, but how are our students growing? So where they start at the beginning of the school year, where are they growing, and not just are they proficient, but are they actually making at least a year's worth of academic growth? And if they're behind or struggling, are we helping them make more than a year's academic growth? Also, eliminating disparities, and those are our opportunity gaps that we sometimes see between our subgroups. That may be race and ethnicity, economically disadvantaged students, or students who receive special education. How are we making sure that each one of our groups are achieving as well, and we're not just looking at the average of the whole? The other thing we heard loud and clear, both from community members and from our students, is increasing college and career readiness. And so what they would like to hear and help our students with is their post-secondary options. So making sure that we are preparing students sometimes for jobs that we don't even know exist, but also making sure that those careers that exist are available to students so that they know more about them, and so that they have the exploration in high school and they're not spending all the exploration money in college, right? I know for myself that I changed majors several times, and that still may happen with our students because they're young, but how are we preparing them in high school or even in middle school to really understand their career opportunities? And those career opportunities are not just through a college track, but also through other tracks that you may see through career tech education. Now, one of the reasons that I did want to share the strategic plan is because I know that I have a lot of people in the audience today that can help us with some of these goals. And so I hope that you're listening right now about ways that we can partner as a school district with your business as well. And then improving learning communities, implementing an innovative learning framework. One of the things that our district has been looking at is NPDL, which is New Pedagogies for Deep Learning. And it's really looking at, for students, not just teaching them about water quality by reading a book, but how can they participate in actually testing water, maybe within our own schools, because I know we had some issues with the water at one time, or within our own region, where we have places within our own region that have issues with water quality. So it's taking real life experiences for students and helping them to learn through those real world experiences. Priority 2 is cultural well-being, and we know that students cannot learn unless they feel emotionally and physically safe. And so one of the big things that we're going to do, or we're working on, is supporting emotional and mental wellness within our students. And you'll see later also within our staff, because our staff really support our students. And so we'll be focusing, we're excited that this year we're going to have a partnership with Easter Seals and to help do mental health within our school district as well for our students to get that outside therapeutic support. We also heard from our community that they liked all the listening circles that we did, for instance, for budget and for other controversial issues, and we need to provide more transparent two-way communication for our community. So I know one of the things that our board is doing this year is they're going to have 2 town halls, because at board meetings, that's the time for our board of trustees to do their business, and so public comment is really not the time to have that meaningful dialogue. So they are going to open themselves up to do town hall meetings for the community. As well, I will be doing coffee and conversation, although I don't drink coffee, but it'll be coffee and tea for anyone, with the superintendent, and I will have monthly meetings, I'm hoping throughout the community, so if you have a space that I could come and hold a coffee and conversation with our stakeholders, please let me know. But again, just an opportunity to have that two-way meaningful communication. And then making sure that we have equitable access to extracurricular activities and resources, just making sure all of our students have access. Priority 3 is attract and retain talented and diverse staff. We know that there's a teacher shortage. We want to make sure that we are recruiting and retaining high-quality staff, but also diverse staff, and really looking at making sure that our staff reflects what our region looks like, as well as making sure that we are focusing on their social and emotional wellness, because they support our students, and making sure that they have professional learning that is high quality and a choice for them in terms of what they need to help them to grow. And then the last priority, and I'm trying to talk fast, Pat, is responsible stewardship. No surprise here, right? We want to make sure that we are boldly marketing the district and really increasing our enrollment, looking at financial accountabilities. And so when we look at, we come to the board and we're asking them to approve something, they're going to ask, how does this fit with our strategic plan? And we are going to be able to tell them, because each one of our, everything that we do is going to be tied back to what we say our vision is. And so that way we are spending our money responsibly on what the community wants. And then also looking at generating revenue through viable resources. We have ideas about expanding early childhood education, preschool, transitional kindergarten, as some of the ways to further generate revenue. And so, there are other great things that are happening within Birmingham. This summer, we continued our summer programming for all students, both academic summer school and also summer programs through our community education. We implemented a school improvement institute where we had 80 staff members come 2 days in June to just talk about data, the strategic plan, and how to move our schools forward. As a matter of fact, the 3rd day is actually today, which is why some of our central leadership team members are not here. We do have Dr. Maria Gistinger, who is here, in our interim assistant superintendent of finance, as well as our executive director, Zach Riley-Kelly, who is over technology. But the rest of our central leadership team is actually at a School Improvement Institute with over 80 members of our staff talking about how to further improve our schools for students this coming year. As well, safety is a big issue. We look at safety in 3 buckets. One, what is our culture and climate? Because we really do believe that if you have a strong culture and climate, if students feel a part of something, then you're less likely for students to want to do things to harm each other. Now, I know that that in itself doesn't prevent something horrible from happening, but it is a part of a strong safety program. In addition, we are a National District of Character, so we are still focused on that character education to improve our, and continue to improve our culture and climate. As well, we're looking at sometimes students do need that additional help with mental and social emotional wellness. And that's why, in addition to our fabulous counselors and social workers that we have within the schools, we're teaming up with outside sources so that students who need additional therapeutic support may be able to have that, and we can have a partnership with those outside services. And then we are looking at safety precautions. We are in the process of hiring a safety director to be able to coordinate safety for all of our schools, 14 of our schools, as well as we have specific things with our security cameras that we have done presentations on that we are putting in place to, again, help with those immediate safety precaution pieces that unfortunately could come to fruition. We are welcoming new teaching staff because we've had a lot of retirements, and even though we've had reductions, we have had people who have retired in positions we have to replace. We have just named a new principal at Beverly Elementary, and we're excited to have Matthew Fairchild come aboard as well. And then we have bond construction projects, which you saw coming into the to come here today in our parking lot. Our generous community supported a $195 million bond, and the primary focus that the community said at the time that they wanted to focus on is a look at our high schools and the athletic facilities and making sure that our athletic facilities look similar to other districts, that they're comparable. And so that is what you're seeing here out at Groves, the athletic facilities, as well as at Seaholm. Berkshire is getting some renovation, both in their media center and cafeteria. And then we have playgrounds at West Maple, Pembroke, and Bingham Farms that are being replaced. So I know some people say, well, how can you be doing all of this work when you say you have financial? Bond money is different. You cannot use bond money for plugging for general fund expenditures, and that's why there is a difference between using our bond money, which the voters voted on in the way that they asked us to, and the expenditures we have from our general fund. But at the end of the day, there are great things happening in Birmingham, and we are excited to turn the page to a new chapter and continue the Birmingham brilliance that we've always had. So thank you, and I look forward to answering your questions after Mr. Watson. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Robertson. At this time, I would like to introduce Mr. Peter Provenzano, who is the Chancellor at Oakland Community College, and he's going to introduce our next speaker.
Good morning. As she mentioned, my name is Peter Provenzano. I'm Chancellor at Oakland Community College, and OCC is just thrilled to be a sponsor of this really important conversation between Superintendents Watson and Robertson. And we're also very proud to be a member of the Chamber, and it's something we're very proud of. Just a little fact, over 400 of the residents between the two communities are currently enrolled at OCC, and so we're really proud of that. And I'm also really proud of the team that is joining me here this morning. I would like to recognize Susan Gibson, our trustee and secretary of our board, Jennifer Byrne, our provost, Dr. Byrne, thank you. Dan Genuine, vice chancellor for advancement, is here, as well as Eunice Jeffries, our director and community relations key person at OCC. And we also have Lola Banks, who's our associate dean of college readiness and secondary partnerships. Really proud of the entire team, and I want to thank everyone for being here and for their support. And I, as much I'm sure you are as well, looking forward to hearing from Patrick Watson because of his reputation. He is known to serve his community as well as students, and I was kind of looking through his biography, and he really started his career and spent most of his career at West Bloomfield High School. He was there for 25 years. He started out teaching. He was the athletic director, eventually moved his way up into superintendent, and then just looking at, he has an extensive list of examples of ways ways that he is involved in the community. And I got to know him a little bit over the last couple years, and I can tell you he is a very, very humble person. So I can feel him looking at me saying, Provenzano, will you just get on with it and sit down so that we can get on with the program. So I'll tell you what, would you please help me in welcoming Patrick Watson to the podium.
Can you hear me okay? So good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Great to see everyone. I'd like to thank all the sponsors. It looks like I have 2 Bloomfield Middle School board members here. So I'd like to thank Trustee Howard Barron, who is somewhere. Thank you. Trustee Paul Colin, who, if you don't know, he is everywhere. So he's probably here in 5 events at the same time. And I think that's all of our board members. So my presentation is going to be. You want me to use that? Sorry. So, wow. My presentation is going to be a little different. I kind of have some different reflections. I kind of want to take you on a journey, so kind of stay with me. So when I think of this school year, this is something I want to share with my whole staff on opening day. Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connections and insists that they become the best they can possibly be. If you've never heard of Rita Pearson, make sure you take a look. The past 2 years we know have been something else. We've been pulled in so many different directions, but we know our primary focus is on teaching and learning. Think back to all your time in school, pre-K, 12, higher ed. What do you remember? You remember those moments. You remember those memories. Do you remember the lesson in 11th grade on how to do logarithms by hand? Probably not, right? But you know those adults who have impacted you positively along the way. So this summer I've been trying to reflect what's been going on the past couple of years, and I wanted to summarize it into words or a paragraph or a thesis or something. And I really couldn't. And they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. So here's my picture that summarizes the past couple of years in education. This was me probably every 10 minutes. Going up the roller coaster, frightened at one point, exhilarated on another because we've solved a problem along the way. Right? Where that roller coaster might go and where those emotions might go this year, I don't really know. And then talking to my own children this summer. My son is a teacher, my middle child is a microbiologist, my youngest will be a sophomore in college, and sharing with them, I'm so excited for this school year. We have over 5,000 students that are going to be entering our buildings. And they are counting on us. They are coming ready to be taught and to learn. And so I started thinking about my staff, and then this picture came to mind. So think about all the different individuals. Some you recognize, some you don't. Individually, they all have a superpower, right? That's great. On their own, they can do a few things. But what really makes a difference is when they're all together. That cohesion, that unity, where everyone's focused on one goal. And that goal is our students. Understand that education is a serious business, and I take it extremely serious. Why? Because we're talking about children. A lot of you, if not all of you, are parents in this room. You send us every single day the best you have. You have hopes, you have dreams for what they can and should become. It's imperative on us to help them get there. So when I think about all these people's, the different characters, they're in movies, they're in things like that. But when I show up, I get this picture. We have one of the most talented staffs in Bloomfield Hills. They show up every single day for children. And for us to be successful, we all have to work together. We rise, we fall, we sink, we swim. we will meet our fate together. And we have to have that unwavering, relentless focus on teaching and educating our children, now more than ever. Like Birmingham, we have a lot going on with our bond work this summer. It's great. We're going to have 2 state-of-the-art middle schools. We're going to update our elementary schools. There's going to be improvements at our farm and nature center. And in 3.5 weeks, we're going to get a group of students, over 5,000 that are going to show up. If you've been teaching a while, they're going to look really familiar. You might get a Claire, you might get a John, but what is the focus? Not just for our classroom teachers, not just for our staff, but for me, to know that when our students come in, there are 3 things we need to do immediately. We need to know every student by their name. That matters. Kids know if you care when you take the time to get to know their name. We need to know every student by strength. What is it they do well? What can I work and enhance that they already do well? And then every student by need. What do they need? Every student shows up with something you don't know about. No different than adults, right? Every one of us in this room is dealing with something that other people don't know about. So how do we prepare to know our students by name, by strength, and by need? Because that shows we care. That shows we're investing in them. Now, for some of our teachers that are new, the students might look a little bit more like this. But it's no different. Again, how do we get to know our students by name, by strength, and by need? Those are imperative as we move forward. So some of the things you're going to hear coming out of Bloomfield Hills is this idea of a portrait of a learner. And these are some of the key points I'll touch on briefly. We want our students to inquire about the world. I grew up when things happened, you had to either go and get the newspaper, or can we get to the microfiche and see what happened in X year and find out? Our students with technology know what's going on in the world at all times. All they have to do is pick up a device and they know. So how can we make sure they want to inquire about the world? Understand multiple perspectives. We don't want to tell our students what to think. We want them to think. Look at all the different angles. Have all the information. And once you have all the information, make a determination about what you think is right or maybe wrong, or what can be done differently, or ways you can improve something. Respectful dialogue. It's okay to disagree, but how do you engage with each other and have a respectful dialogue that doesn't turn into something else that is so often portrayed, unfortunately, by us as adults out in the world? We want our students to say, it's okay. You and I are going to disagree, but I want to understand your perspective. Tell me why you really feel that way. Well, here's why I feel the way I do. We might agree to disagree, but we've engaged in that respectful dialogue. IB. All of our buildings, K through 12, are going to be IB. We spent a lot of time this past 2 years really looking at alignment and coherence within Bloomfield Hills to make sure everyone's on the same page. Everyone understands where we're going, and just as importantly, understand why we're going this way as we move forward.
What is IB?
International Baccalaureate. Thank you, Trustee Barron. Dynamic learning environments. There's a book called The Third Teacher. It's a great book. It talks about the impact furniture can have on learning. As we move into our new spaces, thank you again to the community for passing the bond, we're going to look at how we can leverage our spaces to better educate our students. Design across the curriculum. Where can we tie math and science together? Where can we tie ELA and social studies together? Where are those opportunities that exist that we can then identify and then move into? Grappling with complexities. We live in a very complex nation. Talking to one of my former students this summer. He lives in Hong Kong, runs a hedge fund in New York. trying to wrap my head around how he can live halfway around the world and run an office that he never really goes into. It's a very complex world our children are growing up in. We need to make sure they have the understanding of how they can kind of tackle those complexities. Taking responsible action. Being responsible for your decisions, making good decisions. Understanding that sometimes when there are poor decisions, there are repercussions that happen. Experiential learning, kind of what Dr. Roberson said as well. We want our students to experience learning. The whole idea of traditionally sit and get is outdated. How do we prepare our students for what the future might hold? So we've created at the high school level these different pathways which allow our students to get out of the building, into the community, working side by side with different partnerships. Maybe they want to go into medicine, maybe they want to become an engineer. We know higher education is a huge investment of resources, finance, time. How do we provide those opportunities for our students to experience some of those things hands-on? And not just at the high school level, but all the way down at the elementary level. It's great talking about ecosystems. What if your school could actually have a small ecosystem just outside your classroom? And that's going to be our 2 middle schools where they're going to have the opportunity to have an ecosystem right outside some of their classrooms for science. So instead of just hearing about it, reading about it, or watching, they can actually live it. And that's a huge move we've been making. And instructional technology. How do we use technology to move education forward? It's a big part of our young people. They're native learners when it comes to technology. How do we leverage technology to improve the educational outcomes that we're trying to have? So in Bloomfield Hills, we are looking forward to an incredible year, really locking in on the key components I shared, teaching and learning. We know our students are coming excited to be in school. And Trustee Colin knows this as well. We've got one young lady that's so excited, she reached out to me about starting an ambassador program. So when the 3 middle schools merged down to 2, they kind of have been in a vet with each other, they know each other, and then preparing to go to high school. That's the type of excitement we have. And then how do we make sure that we know every student by name, by strength, and by need? And that's the expectation for everyone, including myself. That means I need to find a way to learn over 5,000 different names, their strength, and their need. No different for a building administrator, no different for our Board of Education, because if we're going to be successful and we're really going to be the school district we want to be, we have to block out all that noise. We have to work together, understand where we're going, and support each other so we can get there. Why? Because our kids need it, our kids deserve it, and any other distraction that takes away from our kids is unacceptable in my mind. So thank you, and thank you for coming.
Thank you both so much for your comments. We have some questions that were submitted beforehand and also some that our staff is collecting. So we'll get right to it. This one was submitted to us ahead of time. And the question is, the Michigan Department of Education will require high school students to take a course in personal finance beginning in 2024. How will your school districts handle this requirement and implement it into their current curriculum?
We'll make that final decision as soon as the state releases the standards. So we're already looking at a couple different options. One is to embed it in some of our current curriculum, for example, in economics. We already have a standalone finance class, so the possibility of making sure the standards are embedded there and then having that as a requirement. But until we actually know what the standards are, we're not going to make a final decision on what that looks like moving forward.
And similar
Similar to Bloomfield Hills, we also have a standalone finance class, and so our curriculum department is looking forward to hearing more about the standards from the state of Michigan to determine whether or not our finance class meets that criteria or if we need to do something different.
Is your finance class currently required for all students, or is it an elective?
It's an elective.
It's an elective.
Same, it's an elective.
Okay. So that's interesting. It'll be hard to maybe, I have a student going into high school, and she's worried about getting all of her requirements in the electives. So hopefully, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for kids to learn. It's something that I wish I had been taught in high school. So thank you. Let's see, our next question. I'll take one from the audience here. Okay, this is a good one. For students who have learning challenges, what can you each tell us about alternative school or distance learning options online? Are you continuing an online option for students?
So we are continuing it for our high school students only. We don't have, right now, an elementary or middle school option in terms of online instruction. And additionally, we do have an alternative program, Lincoln Street Alternative. And actually, you know, sometimes alternative education gets a bad stigma, but in actuality, many students just need a smaller environment. And what our alternative program, which is a wonderful program with a great principal, does is that it really gets to know each and every student. It tailors their education to their particular needs, and it's just in a smaller environment. They still have access to participate in clubs and athletics within our either Rose or Seahome, whichever is their feeder school. But it allows, again, those students who just need a smaller environment and maybe more structure program to be able to participate in an alternative education.
So in Bloomfield, we have a partnership with Oakland Schools, which allows students in K through 12 to have a full virtual experience. We do have students at different grade levels, K through 12, that are taking advantage of that opportunity. Their parents feel it is the best fit for them, so we're supporting them in that effort. And then I wouldn't really call it an alternative school. We have a second high school, Bauer School Farm. So we have a roughly 100-acre working farm, which also has a facility building where we have high school students. We have students that are from Bloomfield Hills, and we have students that are actually from other parts of Oakland County. So if you know a student that's looking for a setting that's going to be a little bit smaller, lots of hands-on activities, working on a farm, there is an application that is available online for students who are in Oakland County that would like to be part of our Bauer School Farm program as part of Bloomfield Hills Schools. It's a Bloomfield Hills School diploma. They participate in activities at the high school. Students sometimes will have classes going back and forth as well. So it really is quite a different and unique experience. And the feedback, and I've been in Bloomfield Hills now 2.5 years, the feedback from the students has just been tremendous as far as their experience working on the farm, and not just, again, learning science, that experiential learning we're talking about, but actually doing science and watching baby goats being born, and how do you care for them, and what's going on with the life cycle, and how do you know if the goat is pregnant. It's really quite eye-opening, and I've learned that when I go, I need to bring a second pair of shoes because sometimes there are gifts that are left in the barn for me.
Just add that those applications are not available to Birmingham students. No, I'm just kidding.
That would not be true. That would be illegal. They're open to all Oakland County students. And if you can't find it, email me. I'll send it to you immediately.
I feel like this question goes hand in hand with the topic we were just speaking of. As everyone is aware, college degree is not for every student. Many kids find rewarding careers in skilled trades. Is there a plan to expand promotion and availability of these skilled trades opportunities?
We actually have started that even a couple of years ago in terms of we have our technical OSTC, which is our technical center that's open and available to everyone, but really promoting OSTCs to our students. And we've done that by at parent-teacher conferences, for instance, having a presenter here during parent-teacher conferences to talk to do presentations to parents and families to understand, how the skilled trades could be a good fit for their particular student. Unfortunately, what we heard, and I can just even tell my own story, is that, having a child who went through the Birmingham School District, sometimes there's a stigma about going to the technical center, and that, college is the only route for all students. And I remember my daughter asking me to go to OSTC to become a certified nurse assistant. And I said, no way, because you're going to college. There's no purpose for you to go to the technical center. Well, my daughter still went to college, but then she paid in college to become a certified nurse assistant to help work her way through college. Or she could have taken that experience right within our school district. And so it's trying to get away from the stigma of skills trades, because we know that there is a shortage out there for skilled trades, and there is also good money in skilled trades, and making sure that we are focused on what Mr. Watson said earlier about the strengths of our students. What are their strengths? And if their strengths are to make sure that they are prepared for college, let's do that. But if their strengths are for them to move into the skilled trades, we also should support that in whatever way we can. And we've also taken field trips over to OSTC again. OSTC is the Oakland Schools Technical Center. Thank you, Trustee Barron. To make sure that we are putting the needs of our students first.
Pretty much the exact same in Bloomfield Hills. We're really leveraging our counselors and not only making sure the information is available to our students, but they understand what it means to be an apprentice and what that would look like financially, short-term and long-term in those opportunities. And I will try to make sure if I use an acronym, I let you know what it means ahead of time to stay out of edu-speak before we have to wrangle a Trustee Barron in the back.
Thank you. On another note, let's see. This could be for both of you. I have two questions related to student population. For Birmingham, what was your school population kind of decreasing? Is it time to take a serious look at combining the two high schools? Why or why not? And for you, Mr. Watson, combining the two high schools has been a long and controversial process. Has it been successful? And what, if any, challenges remain?
So in terms of the first question for Birmingham, right now our population is around 7,200 students. And yes, we have had a declining population. We saw a larger decline during COVID times, but overall, just like with the state of Michigan, we have seen a slow decline in enrollment. Where we are right now is we need to do a facility studies looking at all of our schools' capacity, enrollment, looking at our enrollment study, and make a decision about what we need to do with our schools. Just embarking on this at the beginning, I don't want to predetermine what that may look like after doing a facility studies. That would be a Board of Education decision working with administration. But I can tell you that we are going to be conducting a facility studies this year to look at all of our students, as all of our buildings and enrollment.
So I would say the combining of Gloucester and Andover into Bloomfield Hills High School has been successful. I can really see in the past couple of years what I would call the culture of being a Blackhawk. And as we go from 3 middle schools to 2 middle schools, our 2 middle schools will be Blackhawks as well. So kind of that brand, that theme, all roads lead to the high school, will kind of be the mantra as we go through. I mentioned earlier in my presentation, the young student that reached out to me about starting a middle school ambassador program. That's part of her, she'll be a 7th grader this year. That's part of her vision as well, is that everyone goes to the high school. But we also need to do a better job in Bloomfield Hills in articulating why you should go to the high school, why this is the best opportunity for your child, what separates us from everyone else. What is it we do so well that we're going to hang our hat on and say, this is why you pick us and no one else. And so that's part of the conversations we've been having internally as we look at coherence, at alignment, and making sure that everyone's on the same page moving forward with the same mission of providing as many opportunities as possible for our students to teach and learn in the ways they do best.
To both districts, do you see it in the near future a change of direction for high school juniors taking the ACT over the SAT?
Well, I'll give you, how do I want to say this? I have no idea what the state's going to do. For the longest time, we were ACT. Then we became SAT. There was a savings there. Not saying that's why the decision was made. But my experience, this is my 29th year, has been that students tend to do a little bit better at one test than the other, SAT and ACT. So you know the SAT is required by the high school. It's a graduation requirement. It's required by the state, so you're going to take it. My recommendation to students has always been take the ACT as well, see which test you do best at, and then kind of focus on doing well at that test. That sometimes may not, it might behoove the student, but then your SAT scores are also part of how schools are ranked, which is important as well. And for a lot of our students, they've prepped and taken the SAT well before the spring of their junior year and have a score that is a score they're extremely happy with, that opens a lot of doors for them, which then takes some of the priority away from the in-school tests administered by the state because you have a score you're happy with.
He covered it.
We have about 5 minutes left. I think maybe that's time for one more question. Let's see here. I have a question. There's a national teacher shortage. Some have even described it as a crisis. I know Michigan is not unique in not facing that in our local schools. So, Dr. Robertson, I know you've addressed your hiring new teachers and staff. Can you both answer how you're handling that challenge?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's a little bit different. When I first got in education, the idea was you got hired in the school district, you stayed there 30, 35 years, you got your gold watch, you retired, you moved on. That's changed. Teachers now have more options, and they're only as loyal as the options that are put in front of them. So we're competing for an extremely small pool. I think it's important to also recognize that the teacher shortage, there is, but there isn't. We have tens of thousands of people who are certified to teach who have left the profession. We need to talk about why that is, because they're there. If we didn't have the attrition rate that we have, people would stay. A big part of that is going to be the culture and climate, the support, the pay, right? So I know for us in Bloomfield Hills, we just recently signed a new teacher contract. And part of that was making sure that we redid the finances so that people got steps along the way that weren't as spread out. So it wasn't 3%, 3%, 3%, and then a decade later, you get 12%. And also trying to bring up the starting wage a little bit. Starting wage, 40, 41,000. You know you're going to need a master's. You're going to need continual improvement. Talking to a young person that's starting a new job at Steelcase, got a $15,000 signing bonus, $5,000 to move from one state to another. And they said, we could only start you out at $72,000. Are you willing to accept? Not that working at Steelcase isn't important. Not that designing furniture is not important. But we're also talking about the importance of educating our students. So it's going to take a lot to fix where we're at. And this idea that you can give a $1,000 bonus, that's not going to make a difference, right? So from where I sit, how can I make Bloomfield Hills the most attractive place to be? How can I make sure our teachers have what they need to feel supported and are supported? Our community was asked to pass a bond, which is going to revolutionize some of the things we're doing. And they were gracious enough to pass it. We have teachers excited about that. Everyone wants to feel like they're part of something, right? So I showed you that picture before. of the incredible staff that I work for. And I share with you whatever is going to happen, whether we rise or fall, we sink, we swim, we're going to meet our fate together. And part of our recruiting is also having our teachers who, guess who they're friends with? Other teachers. Have we created an environment where they want to reach out to their friends and say, hey, come to Bloomfield. It will be great. You should apply. You'll love it here. And if we haven't, then what are we going to do to fix that? Because if we don't have staff who want their friends to work in the same district, then we've got a problem there as well. So there's a lot of moving pieces, and we can talk about, we put it on LinkedIn, we put it on Indeed, we put it on a handshake with all the universities. I've gone to U of M and sat in with the teachers that are going to be graduating and did the mock interviews. I've done that. That's all great. But I don't think it's going to get us where we're going. And having talked to the governor and Dr. Rice, the state superintendent, about some of the ideas as far as fix the pay, put the pension back, teachers don't have to pay for health insurance. Well, those aren't possibilities. Okay, then throwing a couple dollars here and there really aren't going to make it attractive, right? A lot more is required and asked of our teachers now than we did previously. So I know I'm rambling a little bit, so I'll stop.
And I'll just add, kind of ditto to everything Patrick said, but as well, I can't underscore the importance of the culture and climate as well as the pay for our teachers, and not just our teachers, for our school community. Even if there is not controversy with a particular teacher, if the school district is embroiled in kind of the vitriol, kind of back and forth that we've seen sometimes in meetings, it does affect the entire culture of the school district. And so it's important, and that's one of the reasons why we did bring in the Civility Project. And it's important for us to hear, we want to hear that constructive criticism, because we need to grow, we need to improve, but we need to do it in a way that is in a very respectful manner so that we can all feel like we want to be here, especially when we're struggling with things like pay. Teachers, educators did not get into this field to make money. But the reality is that every child who becomes a successful adult went through a teacher. And so how are we really taking care of our teacher? How we take care of our teachers is not just pay, but also that culture and climate. One of the things that we are working on right now is a Grow Your Own program as well. So we're looking at some of our paraprofessionals and actually some of our students right now in trying to work with them about being an educator, and how can we support them with some of the funds that are coming in through the state to move into the field of education. But as Pat said, it's not just recruiting them, but it's also being able to retain them as well.
Thank you both for your time this morning, and I think our students are in very capable hands with your leadership, and we thank you for joining us. A round of applause. I would also like to thank your staff who helped coordinate this event. Both of you have wonderful teams that support you, and they worked very hard to help us coordinate this event. So thank you all to your team, including the IT department who's here and helped a lot with the presentation this morning. And again, I want to thank our sponsors, Michigan United Credit Union and Oakland Community College. And I want to thank our host again, Birmingham Schools. We'll be at Bloomfield Hills next year. And stay tuned for information on upcoming chamber events. We're really grateful for your support and would love to see you in the near future.